Welcome to the Jenny Beth Show.
Last week, 50 United States senators stood up and said something simple. Prove you're an American citizen to vote in American elections and show a voter ID when you're casting a ballot. 50 senators, that is a majority of the Senate. It is still not enough to get the Save America Act to the president, but it is a step in the right direction thanks to the phone calls and the persistence you have shown. Here's what actually happened. The House-passed version of the Save America Act was offered as an amendment to the Department of Homeland Security funding bill under the budget reconciliation. This was an amendment offered by Senator Mike Lee, and it passed by 50 votes on the Senate floor, a majority. And then the Senate parliamentarians struck it down under the Byrd Rule because the Save America Act does not spend enough money to have a budgetary impact on the government's budget. Now, we predicted that that would happen if it passed, if it went through under reconciliation. Still, what we learned is what we've been saying all along. A majority of senators voted yes. Now, it doesn't stand because of this procedural technicality, but it's still something you should be glad of, and it means we have to keep on working. Now, let's understand exactly what this was and what it was not. The Save America Act did not lose on its merits. It did not get voted down on the floor. It ran into both the 60-vote threshold due to filibuster and also the procedure with the Byrd Rule because of reconciliation. So what it means is that the next thing we need to do is get the House of Representatives to attach it to legislation. That means it's up to the House and up to you. So here's what we're asking you to do exactly right now today. Pick up the phone and call the House and tell your congressman to attach the Save America Act to every single bill that moves through the House, including the FISA bill that the House is voting on this week. The number is on your screen right now, and it is 202-224-3121. Again, it's 202-224-3121. Now, let me tell you why the FISA bill matters right now. It's because FISA is considered must-pass legislation. What must-pass legislation means is that under normal circumstances, usually Democrats and Republicans agree that this, whatever the legislation might be, must be passed into law for the benefit of the country. And until the radical left Democrats in Congress voted to shut down the Department of Homeland Security for so long, we worked from a bit of understanding that some on the left would vote to keep legislation that is considered must pass moving and passed into law. And when Democrats control things in the government, usually there are a handful of Republicans that will do the same thing in order to pass must pass legislation. Now, it may not be true any longer. We may be working from a paradigm where there is no such thing as must-pass legislation, but we are right now assuming that there is still must-pass legislation. And the FISA bill, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, has to have Section 702 be reauthorized by Congress every so often. The current authorization for Section 702 expires this Friday, June the 12th. And since it does, we know it must pass, and we are urging the House to attach the Save America Act to it. Now, Section 702, in case you're wondering, let me just tell you a little bit more about FISA and Section 702. It permits our government to use the surveillance tools within FISA to stop terrorists, especially here on our soil. Because the bill helps stop terrorism, that is why it's considered must-pass legislation. Now, it's worth noting about FISA that there are congressmen who want an amendment to FISA that would require a warrant for the government to spy on United States citizens who are suspected of terrorist activity. Right now, under 702, if they think it is terrorist activity, especially an impending threat, they don't have to get that warrant. So there are congressmen who are asking for it. And I appreciate those congressmen's efforts to protect our constitutional rights. All right, since FISA is considered must pass, we think attaching the Save America Act to it is the best chance that we have right now next to advance the bill. And that means it's important for you to know that when you're calling Congress and when you are asking Congress to add the Save America Act to FISA, now you understand a little bit of the background. So when you're making that call, it makes sense to you. Now, some in leadership, and you may get a few phone calls or you may hear in media people saying, oh, they're moving the goalposts. The people who are talking about FISA are moving the goalposts. What they mean by that is that we're changing what we're asking for, but we are not. At Tea Party Patriots Action, and for those of you who have been advancing the Save America Act for over 2 years, we have been saying that we want this bill passed and that we think it must be attached to must-pass legislation. So that is not unusual. We're not moving the goalpost. Furthermore, just a few weeks ago, President Trump said to attach it to FISA in a Truth Media post, Truth Social post. So President Trump has specifically said to attach it to Truth Social. In fact, we've got that tweet or post up on the screen. He said a few weeks ago on May 16th, the Save America Act must be passed now. Use housing and FISA bills to get it done. Maryland just had 500,000 fake mail-in ballots revealed. We cannot, as a country, put up with this any longer. Voter ID and proof of citizenship must be approved now. Crooked mail-in voting must be stopped. Put it all in the housing and FISA bills. Make America great again. So we're not asking for any changes to it, and we are asking for this to be attached to FISA. If it doesn't happen with FISA, we're going to be like the Energizer Bunny and just keep on going and going and going, and we're not giving up. Right now, this is the call to action. So please make those calls and let's keep this momentum going. When it passed the Senate, and it finally did pass in the Senate, and we saw that the Senate has 50 votes, that means we've got momentum on our side. And when you've got momentum on your side, you don't let up, you keep going. And so we've got to keep going. So keep making those phone calls to your congressman, urge them to attach the Save America Act to every bill that is passing out of the House, including the FISA bill that moves this week. Now, if you are not completely convinced of the importance of doing this, and you need one more incentive to make the phone calls, just look at what is happening right now in California with the California jungle primary, with a week-long counting process and no voter ID, not even just a week, with weeks-long counting process and no voter ID requirement. It is an absolute mess. I just got back from California. I saw the beauty of that state up front and close, and I saw the political mess that is strangling it. Several members of the Tea Party Patriots Action Team and I stood on the deck of the USS Midway for an America 250 event with Moms for Liberty, and I came home convinced now more than ever that California is worth the fight. So let me bring in our panel. Kira Davis is an author and the host of The Orange Report, where she breaks down California politics every week with clarity that the rest of the country needs to hear. You can hear her show and follow her at Orange Report OC. Kira, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Jenny Beth. Good to see you again.
And then we also have Robert McNeily. He is the Director of Broadcasting and Grassroots Engagement for Tea Party Patriots Action. He has spent years on the front line as a broadcaster and as a grassroots activist before he joined our team. You can follow Tea Party Patriots at TP Patriots. Robert, thanks again for being here. I'm so glad you're with me as well today.
Oh, thanks, Jenny Beth. And hi, Kira. Great to see you again after a wonderful celebration on Saturday.
Hi, Robert. Yeah, it was a great time. And I would like to thank Jenny Beth for extending an invitation for me to join Tea Party Patriots on the USS Midway. It was an incredible D-Day observation, recognition, and celebration of liberty. And it was my pleasure to be there with you guys. It was a great night. And Tom Cruise was there.
That's right. They have a Tom Cruise impersonator on the
He was
USS
good.
Midway. He's very good, and you can get your photo taken with him. Top Gun music was playing. It just was an amazing, amazing night, and we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. Kira, you're from California. You cover California every single day, and you live it. You breathe it. You eat it. You care so much about this state. So walk us through what is actually happening right now in the Los Angeles mayor's race and also in the California gubernatorial election. Where is Spencer Pratt? What happened with these overnight voter dumps? And what do you think is going to happen?
Well, as of this morning, Spencer Pratt has dropped to third place. Nithya Raman is just above him. I think there is, I think 7,000 votes separate them now. After the weekend ballot dumps, Nithya Raman springboarded above Spencer Pratt. I think what we're seeing in Los Angeles is what we expected to see. For us here in California, we expected to see this. For everyone else in the rest of America, they feared seeing this. I want everyone to understand that when election night, and we have election month here in California, we actually have 2 months of election. We have a month of early voting and then a month of counting. That's technically 2 months of election here in California. So when election night ballots were counted, that initial drop had Spencer Pratt really close to Karen Bass at the top. Clearly, in any other election cycle, you would have said that the distance between him and Nithya Raman, 11 points, I think, at one point, was insurmountable, and they would have called the race for Spencer. Nithya seemed to indicate that she wasn't going forward, and she was sad about that. The preceding ballot dumps, I want everyone to understand this. On election night, Nithya Raman was the percentage of the vote that came in for Nithya Raman was 23%. The preceding ballot dumps since then, the percentage of those ballot dumps that have been going to Nithya Raman, who was previously in third place, has doubled to 43%. Overnight, Nithya Raman's ballot drops doubled to 43%, and now she's on top of Spencer Pratt. So it's shenanigans. I can't think of another word. It's shenanigans. Steve Hilton is also losing his lead, or the lead is shrinking, but we feel confident that his lead is significant enough to withstand whatever is happening here. Tom Steyer is creeping up. Election night, he was down, I think, around 17%. He is now up to over 20% of the vote. Steve Hilton is stagnant, but holding steady at about 26%. And Becerra amazingly got enough votes to propel him to the top of that primary race over Steve Hilton, who was leading handily on election night. And now he's stalled out. And this is another thing I want people to note. Karen Bass at the top of the LA mayor's race, and Javier Becerra at the top of the governor's race. They got the votes they needed to get in first place, and now they're stalled out. No new votes are coming in for them. All the new votes seem to be going to the third place candidates. So that's what's going on here.
Very, very interesting shenanigans for sure. Kira, you said that people in California expected this to happen. Why? What have you seen in California elections over the years? This isn't the first time these kind of problems have happened in California, right?
No, this has been going on pretty much since our jungle primary. However, in 2020, the governor signed legislation for universal mail-in ballot and to eliminate voter ID, any kind of ID requirements. We'd never have voter ID, but now you don't even need any kind of proof of citizenship to register to vote at the DMV. You can use your gym card, you can use your library card. I think you can even use a credit card or a utility bill to register. So they weakened a lot of those laws. So in 2020, I'm here in Orange County, which a lot of people think is red, but in 2020, we started going blue after, coincidentally, all of these laws were signed. I want to tell you guys what happened to me in 2022. And I know I've said this, I've told you about this before, Jenny Beth, but I ran for school board here in Orange County. I'm from a conservative district. We had a liberal school board. They were closing down the schools. I decided to run. On election day, my Democrat opponent and I were neck and neck. And I was trending to lead and to win. That's what all the trends looked like. We were very excited. It took 3 weeks, almost 4, to deliver the final result. And every ballot drop that came out after that broke for my Democrat opponent, every single ballot drop. And I would like to say that that man did not campaign for a single day. No one saw him. Most people didn't even know his face. No one knew who he was. Every single ballot drop broke for the Republican. Broke for the Democrat. And that's how it is everywhere in California. We've been screaming about it at the top of our lungs for quite a while now, but the reaction from the rest of America has mostly been where you guys are getting what you deserve. That's how it is in California. You get what you vote for, or you have so many loony people there. Now I think the rest of America is realizing that our problem is everyone's problem. If we're electing fraudulent federal representatives and sending them to DC, that means they're making decisions for the rest of you too. This cannot stand.
You are exactly right. And it does affect the entire country, especially when it is affecting the presidential race, the Senate race, and congressional races. So you're exactly right about that. We all wind up having a stake in the outcome of these elections. Not so much as the city of Los Angeles, but exactly what you're saying when it comes to the United States House and Senate. Kira, you've said California is a canary in the coal mine, not the exception. Make the case for the person at home who is unsure whether this could ever happen in their own state.
It probably is happening in your own state. If you have mail-in ballots, that's what the system is made for. And let's look at the 2020 election. How on earth did Joe Biden get 81 million votes from his basement? We had mail-in voting that year. But once again, I want everyone to understand that we are the United States of America. That means our fates are united. We have tied them together voluntarily under one flag. So yes, what happens in one state affects you. That old adage, that cliche, as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation, is a cliche for a reason. This is the prototype. This is the feature, not the bug. This is the prototype for how Democrats want to conduct elections across the United States. If your vote cannot be protected in one American state, how can it be guaranteed to be protected in all of them? If your Second Amendment right cannot be protected in one American state, how can it be protected in all of them? We have a constitution that covers all of these United States of America for a reason. And when one of us is under duress, all of us are under duress. This is why we go into battle as a nation, and this is why we have federal elections. This is why we all live and work and die under one flag.
Well, Kira, you're exactly right. And the problems in California and the problems with elections across the entire country, many of us, including President Trump, have been warning about these problems for years. And we've focused on excessive mail-in balloting, and President Trump certainly has. He tried to explain it yesterday on Meet the Press. Let's watch this clip.
What they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying. But let me ask you about Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk about Todd Blanche.
There's tremendous evidence. There's nothing but evidence. The election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count the votes.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support that?
All I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election, and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quicker. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
well,
continue.
You play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I got that? Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about, I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk about...
Your elections in this country, we're like a third world country.
Sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC, and CBS, and CNN.
But, Mr. President...
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits, because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
On and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press, because you know what?
Mr. President,
a country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
All right, I'm going to get the reaction from the guests, but before I do that, I want to just say a thing or two about this. What struck me wasn't just President Trump's frustration, it was the exchange itself. Americans have spent years being told not to trust what we see with our own eyes, whether it's COVID, crime, the border, election integrity. Many Americans feel like they're watching one thing happen and being told by the media that it isn't happening. George Orwell said the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. That's how a lot of Americans feel right now when we hear that phrase. There's no evidence, repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again. How many times did Kirsten Welker say that just now on that interview? Mr. President, there is no evidence. There is no evidence. There is no evidence. He says, look at what's happening with California. That's not evidence. Don't look there. And then she says, you never presented any evidence about the 2020 election. I worked on President Trump's legal team in Georgia in 2020. I helped coordinate the affidavits from voters who submitted sworn statements under penalty of perjury. Those affidavits are considered evidence in a court of law, and they were included in President Trump's court filings. People can debate whether they like the evidence or not, but the fact is he presented evidence. The courts would not assign a judge when they were supposed to. The judge over and over and over for over a month, contrary to Georgia law, President Trump did not get a judge when he was supposed to. When he finally got a judge, to her credit, she quickly scheduled a trial, but the hearing wasn't until January 6th. He wound up after the electors were accepted by Congress on January 6th. The court date was January 8th. He wound up withdrawing his case in the nighttime after the electors were accepted on January 6th. His evidence was in his court case. She is a reporter who claims to be so smart, she should go read that case. When President Trump was pushing back against is more than just one interview. It is a growing distrust that Americans have in institutions that increasingly seem unwilling to acknowledge that what ordinary citizens can see. And I am so thankful he stood up to it and he just said, enough, I'm done with it. And she finished that interview and said, well, it was because of the weather, and he agreed that he'll come back and spend more time with me. And the White House did put out a summary of the interview with the things he talked about with Iran. And I appreciate the fact he was able to talk about Iran. The nation needs to hear that, and I'm glad they were able to use that platform to do so. But what is happening in California right now is not normal. Growing up, from kindergarten on, we know how to count. These ballots should not take 4 weeks plus to count. And when you have an election night where the candidate comes in third place at 23%, and then all of a sudden ballot drop after ballot drop after ballot drop, the third place candidate is getting 40+% of the vote, it doesn't add up. And people look at it and they don't trust it. The system may not be rigged at all. Perhaps the system is working just perfectly. But the problem is everyone doesn't trust it. And if you can't trust the system, you don't trust the outcome. And if you don't trust the outcome, you don't have faith that the people who are governing us have the consent of the people they're supposed to govern. This mess in California needs to be cleaned up. The Save America Act needs to be passed. And I am so thankful we have a president who won't put up with the media and will call them out for what they are. Robert, you spent years on the other side of the camera. You were a broadcaster at RSBN and in other media outlets. From a pure media mechanic standpoint, why does it land so differently than any written statement ever could?
Well, first and foremost, you don't want to lose your guest on the show, whether it's the president of the United States, the precinct committeeman, to the sports star down the street hitting home runs or catching those touchdowns. So that's very first off the bat. But in addition to what you mentioned, Jenny Beth, our good friend, the great Mark Levin, arguing that Article 1, Section 2 is clear in the Constitution that state legislatures devise the time, the place, the manner of elections. If you remember back to 2020, it should not have been certified for the very reason that the 7-member Pennsylvania Supreme Court in the Commonwealth unilaterally extended the election in 2020 by 72 hours to have more of those votes counted. That alone was unconstitutional, and the Congress should not have certified 2020. If you watch the long version of that discussion as well on Meet the Press, speaking of January 6th, those defendants deserve a speedy trial, and they did not receive that. And that's guaranteed in Article 6 of our Constitution. So many things happening in that exchange that was recorded on Friday. And we look forward to this transparent administration, the most transparent president in my lifetime, returning to Meet the Press to take them on once again.
Yes, and you made a good point there, Robert. He recorded that on Friday. It aired yesterday. And then last night or sometime yesterday, that's when the latest ballot drop happened and Spencer Pratt went from second place to third place. And she was saying in that interview, oh, Republicans are doing fine in California. And he said, no, they're not. They're sinking. Kira, let's go back to you. What did you think of when you saw that, especially when he was talking about what he predicted, which we're seeing completely play out, would happen in California?
So many things were going through my head. First of all, the way she whined, Mr. President, I've traveled all the way. I flew all the way to Wisconsin. Oh my God. Okay, Kristen. Wow. Amazing. Like you've just done so much work. You've put in so much effort. And of course, the president should defer to you, but also I was just struck by, and I am always struck by this, how disrespectful these people are to the president of the United States. This is the leader of our country, the elected leader of our country. This is the leader of the free world. They want to whine and moan about, oh my gosh, when Obama was president, all we heard is how if you even whispered any kind of disagreement with Obama, you were being disrespectful. This woman wouldn't even let him answer the question. You have the most powerful man in the world sitting right in front of you. What a privilege that is. What a privileged position that is to be in, to sit in front of the president of the United States and ask him questions personally. And you have the audacity to talk over him, to interrupt him, to argue with him. Forget about what your responsibility is as just an American and a human being and a professional. It's also just deeply incurious. As a journalist, that's journalism 101. Let your subject keep talking. You never know what's going to come out of their mouth. You might get something really good. You don't interrupt your subject when they're talking. You let them keep going, because that's when the good stuff comes out, when they are unscripted, unguided. And she just kept talking over him. So all of that added up to just complete disrespect. But yeah, Jenny Beth, I think you pointed it out in your monologue in the beginning of the show, which is this is repetition, right? This is a mantra now. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's no cheating. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. I think this is why every time a Republican, be it the president or any one of us, goes on a liberal network, a liberal show, the first thing they want to do, no matter what we're talking about, abortion, tariffs, Iran, no matter what they're talking about, they always want to get you on record as saying that 2020 wasn't a stolen election. Do you still believe it was a stolen election? They want to shame you, Republicans, into going on record because they know they're going to get caught. And so when they finally do get caught, when we finally do win this, and we will, America, we're going to win this battle. I promise you that. When we do finally win, they want to be able to look at us and say, well, look, even the Republicans said that, we were just doing, even the Republicans said this. So no, don't back down from what you know to be true. Don't back down. Don't let them tell you not to believe your lying eyes. We're losing right now here in California, we're losing, but we're going to win this because I believe in the American spirit. And I believe that we saw the American spirit at play in 2024 on election night. We are not dead yet. And we're not dead yet here in California, but we do have a lot of work to do. And it doesn't look good right now. I do admit that. But the upside of this is that everyone can see what's happening now.
Yes, they can see what's happening. And, when you were just mentioning, I wrote a couple of notes down. When you were mentioning how she was whining about, I traveled all the way to Wisconsin, that's part of what's wrong with the press right now. They're in D.C. and they're in New York and they're not in Wisconsin and they're not in Iowa and they're not in Georgia and they're not in, I was in Redlands. Redlands is a suburb of Los Angeles, albeit depending on the time of day, it's a city separated from Los Angeles, depending on how long it takes to get there. But the point is, you have to get out of the big cities and you have to be with the rest of the country, not just what is happening in the urban area, in order to completely understand what's happening in this country. So when she's sitting there going, I traveled all the way to Wisconsin. Okay, you got on a plane and you flew to Wisconsin. It probably was a private plane for you. Maybe you flew commercial. Even if let's say you did fly commercial, you didn't spend that long getting to Wisconsin. It wasn't like you had to get in a wagon and feed horses and
it's also your job. It's also literally your job.
Yes, exactly. You're right. We will win this battle. And I don't know when. I would say that with President Trump, we have a better chance of winning than if we didn't have him as president. And he has proven we can win against all odds. But in the end, we're going to win. And in fact, Americans agree with us right now. It should be only American citizens voting in elections, and you should show voter ID. And it doesn't deal with all of the mail-in ballot problems for the two that I just mentioned. But when you talk about mail-in ballots, and we've done polling on this, Americans also agree there needs to be some reform to those. And when you watch what's happening in California, I guarantee you, if we were polling on it this week, we'd have a lot more Americans going, yeah, this is messed up and it needs to stop. Robert, beyond election integrity, what concerns you most about a weeks-long vote counting period? Is it accuracy, transparency, public confidence, all of the above, something different?
Oh, all the above. And then the public confidence is out the window. We learned on Saturday night so many great things reflecting on D-Day, but aboard the USS Midway, that the Revolution of France, 20 years roughly after our own revolution, I don't know if many people know this. I did not know it. 15 different constitutions for our friends in France. So the average time of a nation to survive under its ordinance, under its governance, however structured, is 17 to 19 years. We are celebrating 250 years of this great constitutional republic, this experiment, and its religion, its morality that uphold this institution of governance, from the readings and writings of the Federalist Papers to the statements of the first American, George Washington, the father of our country, but also the fact that you have citizens now deeply concerned about their local municipalities all the way up to federal elections and that of the presidency of the United States. It should be of grave concern. But France as well, with those 15 constitutions, guess what they do? They have paper balloting. They know their results the night of. And I think people are very concerned to not have that return, or at least have that option. In some states, you still simply have machines and you don't have that paper balloting. And with all of the mail-in stuff happening, especially the fires that took place in California before Election Day last week, you really have no opportunity to find how to recover those and get those voters notified that their vote did not count as a result.
I would like to point out too, you guys may recall, although the news cycle has moved on dramatically since then, but last week and the week before, we had a huge chemical emergency in Garden Grove, California, a huge chemical spill. Now, it's kind of disappeared from the public eye. It's weird stuff going on there. We're not sure. But the entire, an entire portion of Garden Grove, California, which is just south of Los Angeles, was closed. 40,000 people evacuated from their homes. I asked the question, is anyone monitoring the ballot boxes? Because again, in California, we have a month of elections before we even get to election day. Those ballot boxes are sitting there on every corner in Garden Grove, unguarded, and there were home invasions. There were break-ins going on, gang members taking advantage of the empty streets. And no one has answered that question yet. By the way, what happened to all the ballots in the ballot boxes in Garden Grove?
Well, maybe they were, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think the question is a very good question. And it's those kind of things that make people not trust the outcome of the elections. And until states like California clean up their act, we're going to continue having distrust in the outcome. And if we have distrust, it creates unrest throughout the foundations of our government. One of the most fundamental basic building blocks that our country is built on is that people trust that they are able to vote for those people who are going to represent them and that the election will be fair and free. If it is not, we run into major trouble. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Kira's going to talk to us about why California is worth fighting for and that it is not dead yet. Welcome back. And Kira and Robert, thanks again for being on the Jenny Beth Show. Kira, when we were sitting there on Saturday night on the USS Midway, you mentioned this even earlier when we were talking, you said that people say about California either that you're crazy, that you're loony, or that you should just pack it up and leave if you're a conservative. Make the case for why so many conservatives like you are staying in California and why it is worth the fight.
Because America is worth the fight. I've never quite understood this argument, especially coming from fellow conservatives. I find it to be very disheartening. The idea of, and every day, every time I make a comment on social media, there's 100 people saying, well, just move, just leave. You need to move out to this red state. Listen, y'all better hope people like me don't leave. You better hope people like me stay here. We are the last line of defense between the rest of America and what is happening here, between the rest of America and a President Gavin Newsom. You've already gotten our worst. Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff. Just go Maxine Waters. Go down the list of people who have come. Eric Swalwell, my friends. Javier Becerra, the list goes on and on. We are exporting California to Washington, D.C. It's not an accident. It's a plan. I keep using this phrase. It is not the bug. It is the feature. If we do not, this is why Democrats have put all their eggs in the California basket. It's so populous here. We have so much wealth here that they can use this as sort of a mini nation within the nation of America. So California needs to be saved because we can't save America if we can't save California. So people like me are here, and I don't begrudge anyone for leaving. I want to make that clear. I don't have any judgment for anyone who has packed up and left already. I talked to a number of people even on Saturday night who said, look, if we can't pull this out, I've got to leave. I just can't stay. For my part, I'll leave when the Lord tells me to pick up and go, and not 1 second before. That is how my husband and I have always lived our lives. I believe that you are safer in a dangerous place inside God's will than in a safe place outside of God's will. So as long as I am in God's will, I will be here in California fighting to save California, not just because I love California, and I do. I'm not a California native. I've been here for 20 years and this is the only place I have really called home. And my children have been raised here. And this is a wonderful state, as you both saw yourselves on Saturday night. So much beauty here, but also so many really good people here. We're not just the lunatics in San Francisco, really good people with good families who just want the California dream and the American dream for their families. That is worth saving, not just because the state is worth saving, but because America is worth saving. Steve Hilton always says that California is to America what America is to the rest of the world. I think that is absolutely true. So I want to make this plea, Jenny Beth, while I have your platform to do it. Please do not abandon us to our struggles here in California. And please, I know it's very tempting, but do not insult us. Those of us who are here working are not here because we're idiots or we're too stupid to leave or we're too stupid to understand that we can never win. My God, if our founding fathers had that attitude, that we are outnumbered by the crown. They own the system of government. They own the weapons of war. They are the largest navy in the world. What can we do? Let's pack up and move somewhere else, maybe where we can do it for ourselves. Thank God in heaven our founding fathers did not take that attitude. I refuse to take that attitude as well. And I expect every patriotic American to join me in that because that's in our DNA.
I love that passion, Kira. And California really does have the most beautiful land and the richest resources in the entire country. We were able to drive from LA down to San Diego, and we drove along the coast for a good bit of the way. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country. How do you explain the gap between everything that the state has and what its politics have actually done with it? And what do you say to your fellow Californian to try to help them see the light? Because you're staying and you're fighting. So how are you communicating with them? And are you successful in bringing people over to understand what liberty is all about?
I don't really need to try here in California to bring people over to understand what liberty is all about because the consequences of 16-year supermajority rule are right in everyone's faces right now. And that's what you've seen happening in Spencer Pratt's race. What you saw with Steve Hilton. So what is happening in California is actually very unique. A lot of Californians are turning away from this binary of left versus right. Now, we have a two-party system for a reason. That's the system that we operate in. This is the case I make to voters who might be reticent to choose Republican candidates. But my case is this. We've been trained to position ourselves in the binary, left versus right, Republicans versus Democrat. And Californians are deeply uncomfortable with that. I'm perfectly comfortable with being a Republican. That's fine by me. But in the state of California, things are so bad and everyone's suffering equally. Everyone is suffering the same except for a few bubble dwellers in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. But mostly everyone is suffering the same fate here. So and by the way, the Los Angeles mayor's race is a nonpartisan race. They don't run by party there. So the surge that you've seen from Spencer Pratt is indicative of how Californians are feeling. And that's the case we make. That's the case I've seen Steve Hilton making across the state, which is, look, yes, I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat. Some of us are left, some of us are right, but we are all suffering the same consequences. And in a two-party system, the only way to shake that up is to vote opposite. That's actually how we got Democrats in charge here, because the Republican Party was totally inept. And we failed to inspire the people and do what we said we were going to do. And so in rebellion, they voted Democrats, and the Democrats took advantage of that and then solidified a system in which they would never lose again. So I want to say at this point, and I'm writing, I would like to encourage everyone to go sign up for my newsletter, justkiradavis.com, because today I am writing an article, and I'm re-upping actually an article that I wrote a year ago about a little rebellion that took place in a small town in Tennessee in the 1940s after World War II, where a group of corrupt sheriffs, Democrats, had taken over the means of voting in that town, and were just making sure that they were getting voted in over and over again. That town eventually had an armed rebellion led by a bunch of former GIs who have come home from the war. So we cannot tolerate this anymore. I just want people to know that that's also in our DNA, and that's also something that can happen here. I'm not advocating for armed rebellion in California, but I am asking the question, at what point do you say the typical avenues that we have for recourse as American citizens are not working? As American citizens, don't we have the right to defend our rights, to defend our human rights to vote? If we are watching in real time this corruption happening and everyone's just going, what do we do? At what point does some other avenue of action need to be taken? I'm asking this very seriously.
Well, I would say the answer to that right now is that we've got President Trump in the White House. We have Harmeet Dillon, who is in charge of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. She understands election law, and she understands what Californians face in every single election. I hope that she is going in, watching what is happening right now in California, and determining if there are civil rights violations when it comes to voting and elections that are happening in California, where there would be a reason for the Department of Justice to intervene. And the good thing is, you're right. In America, we have a Second Amendment right. Our country was formed in a revolution to an overbearing government, and we just need to read the Declaration of Independence to understand that. And thankfully, those people who fought for that gave us the Constitution and the ability to overturn our government every 2 years, 4 years, and 6 years, depending on the race, whichever election it may be. So we have to make sure that we restore the proper manner in which to vote in this country, and that the most important thing, states can diverge on how they want to vote, and they will, and they have the right to do that. But the most important thing is that we have to be able to trust the outcome of those elections. And of course, I think the Save America Act is a step in that direction. And I think President Trump highlighting what's going on is a step in that direction. I think him walking off of the interview the other day, and the fact that Meet the Press played that in full and did not edit it, although if they'd edited it, I'm sure someone was filming it and would have posted it from President Trump's team. But the fact that they did that, and he just was saying, it's right before your very eyes. Look at what's happening in California. I think helps us shine light on it, so hopefully we can get corrective action. And like you, I'm not giving up. America is worth the fight. It is absolutely worth the fight. And speaking of the fight for America, let's talk about Saturday night a little bit more. And we weren't fighting on Saturday night, but we were celebrating. We were celebrating America turning 250, and we were celebrating D-Day and the men and women who gave their lives for our country. And we were on board the USS Midway, which was the largest aircraft carrier for a very long time. It was the first United States ship that could not pass through the Panama Canal. When they built it and launched it, they had to determine which sea it was going to be the best in, because it was so big and hard to get around the entire world. And It was used to defend and protect America and Americans throughout the world for many years before it was retired. And Moms for Liberty had this amazing event. David Barton, the historian who I interviewed before Thanksgiving, we actually aired his interview on Thanksgiving, spoke. Glenn Beck spoke. Glenn Beck spoke after fireworks went off from the Midway, and he said something about how you normally never want to follow a child, and he said, or that, because the fireworks show was so spectacular. It was choreographed to the national anthem being sung. So the fireworks were going off as the national anthem was being sung. It was Moms for Liberty and Tina Descovich did a wonderful job. And then when Glenn Beck spoke after that wonderful fireworks show, he topped the fireworks, which is impossible for most speakers. So, Robert, what did you think about being there on the USS Midway? And then we're going to go to Kira and just talk about it as long as you need to tell what you thought of the evening.
Oh, absolutely incredible. And it's so true that the keynote speaker, Glenn Beck himself, probably the only person who can follow fireworks, and the way he weaved together amazing stories, not only happening there on the USS Midway. Michael Thomas O'Neill, the brother-in-law of the great Colonel Steele, who is Sage Steele's father, who was presented with the Liberty Award. What an amazing story to have Army-Navy rivalry within the same family. Not a dry eye in the house, tying it back to D-Day and Beaufort, Virginia. That has the National D-Day Memorial. You may ask why, and Glenn reminding us of the fact that the most men lost on D-Day were from this small town in the Blue Ridge. I mean, really an incredible story, a sad story, and reminding us to stand up and get to the front of the line and to be that first wave. We remember the Midway story. These islands found in 1859 by a captain simply looking for fertilizer. And as Glenn put it, I'm probably the only historian, the only person who could speak, tying biological science and finding bird poop to World War II and the use of those islands as they are exactly midway, halfway between California and Asia. Of course, we know the story with the landing strips that took place there that the United States military needed to take on the Japanese, and those first 36 pilots that went in and sacrificed their lives that ended up being the turning point in the war and leading us to victory in the Pacific. Just some highlights as well I have for Moms for Liberty in 5 years. Think about this amazing network of women that started in the free sunshine state of Florida, with Tina losing her school board race, to now over 5,000 school board meetings being attended, one victory at the United States Supreme Court, over 1 million constitutions, pocket constitutions being handed out to activists and voters, 565 school board wins. Of course, dominating AI in the education space is what we need right now. And June established as Parental Rights Month, in addition to 100 bills signed into law in 22 states. So a night worth celebrating, remembering those brave men and women who have given the ultimate full measure of devotion, but also how can we fight? What can we do every single day in our communities to bring common sense back to our civics? Because we were reminded the other night, it's 1960s on that is intentionally trying to drive away from these amazing stories and the fact that we are one nation under God.
Very good, Robert. That is a great summary. And Kira, what did you think? We were in your home state and it just close to your home. What did you think of the evening? We were in your home county. Were we in your home county?
We were in San Diego County, and I'm in Orange County, which is just south. Yeah, but it's right up the road for me, and it's a familiar drive. I drive past Camp Pendleton, which is our Marine base. I know you came through there when you were driving, Jenny Beth, and isn't that a gorgeous view? Yeah.
Yes.
It's stunning. It blows you away. It really does. The pictures don't do it justice, and I feel very blessed to live here. I was looking up, Robert, when you came back, I was looking up the quote of the night, which was on the back of our program. And you know what? Let me not pretend that I can see without my glasses at 51. I'm still struggling with admitting I need glasses. This is an excerpt from the Cadet Prayer by Colonel Clayton E. Wheat. And this was the theme of the night. Choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half truth when the whole can be one. I feel like this describes my life. Never be content with the half truth when the whole can be one. We are living in half truths right now, but the whole truth is available to us. I'll tell you what, sitting on the USS Midway, on marking the occasion of D-Day, hearing from Sage Steele's dad, which was an incredible experience, and of course Glenn Beck. And Glenn's a lover of history, so he's always, he always peppers his talks with just these amazing stories that you hadn't heard. I was struck, though, Robert, when you were talking about the statistics for Moms for Liberty and what the moms have done. And when I ran for school board in 2022, I started by taking a Moms for Liberty training session. I did, like Tina, lose that race. And it took me a while to figure out why God would put me through that if I wasn't going to win. But and maybe I'm still working through that a little bit. But here's what I want to say. I was struck by the idea that here we were on D-Day celebrating the great and brave men who literally gave life and limb to protect our country, to protect our freedoms. And we were celebrating the great and brave women who also did that, took that spirit and did that. And that's really the difference and the complementary nature, I think, of the American man to the American woman. We send our men to the battlefront, right? We put them in armor, we put weapons in their hands, and they willingly go and stand on the front lines to give their bodies for their families, for us, the American family. That is the job of a man, to be the physical defense of the outer border. But the job of a woman is to be the spiritual and moral defense of the inner border, of the home. And so when the men were struggling on the front lines, and we have had our men struggling on the front lines because we have had weak leaders, the women were forced to stand up and get stronger and to say, okay, we need to fortify our home boundaries here because the men that we have put in charge have not been doing their jobs on the front lines. Thus, organizations like Moms for Liberty have popped up over the recent years. And I don't know, I think that is like a really neat representation about how the American man and the American woman combine together to create an impenetrable defense for our families and for the front lines. And when we work together in our God-given roles like that, we win.
That is exactly right. I love the way that you put that together. And that quote in the theme of the night was quite amazing. Well, it's time to end the show. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And Kira, I appreciate your passion and the fact that you are here reminding people that California and America are worth fighting for.
We're going to win.
That's
We're going to win. I want to leave on that note. I believe in my heart we are going to win. I can't tell you what it looks like. I'm not a prophet. Maybe God will give me something in a dream sometime, but I believe this is the golden age and we can't lose.
Well, thank you. And I am with you. We are going to win. The only way we will lose is if we don't keep showing up. If we keep showing up and we keep standing strong and we keep fighting and choosing the hard right, we are going to win. Kira and Robert, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Great to see you both.
And then remember to follow Kira, to go to her website at justkiradavis.com. And you can also follow her on social media at Orange Report OC. And then, of course, you can follow Tea Party Patriots at TP Patriots. Robert and Kira are both doing essential work, and I'm so glad they were with me today. Before I go, I'm going to ask you one more time, because this week is very, very important when it comes to the Save America Act. Pick up the phone and call the House and tell your congressman to attach the Save America Act to every bill that passes out of the House, including, most importantly this week, the FISA bill that will be voted on this week. A majority of the Senate already said yes to this bill, so now it's time to get the House to attach it to must-pass legislation. So make sure you make those phone calls. You can call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. California is worth the fight. Your vote is worth protecting, and America is worth saving. Keep making those phone calls. I'm Jenny Beth Martin. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow on The Jenny Beth Show. If you enjoyed today's conversation, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It really helps us reach more people who care about liberty and the Constitution. You can find this and other episodes at jennybethshow.com, as well as Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, X, and your favorite podcast platform.
The Jenny Beth Show. is hosted by Jenny Beth Martin. The Jenny Beth Show is a production of Tea Party Patriots Action. For more information, visit teapartypatriots.org.